still in the first day of creation. We talked, we discussed last year, the year before that, this whole idea that it seems that the Ribono Shel Olam created, and then he says, oh, this really looks good, and then he decides to do something other than what he did initially. Chas Shalom, it sounds like he changed his mind. So for example, it says on the first day, God said, let there be light, and there was light. Okay, he created light. God saw that the light was good. God separated between the good, the light, and the darkness. What does that mean? What does it mean that God created the light, and then he saw that the light was so good that he decided he needed to separate it from the darkness? Why didn't he initially separate it from the darkness? It sounds like God created, and then he realized that, oh, I need to separate darkness from light, whatever that means. We discussed that last year. Rashi talks about this idea that at one point in time before the separation, the Or and the Choshech were Irvufia. They were intermingled, whatever intermingled may mean. I don't know how you intermingle darkness inside the light and light inside the darkness, especially in the initial creation. It's either light or it's either dark. You don't have God created light, and in the light there was darkness, and then God had to separate the light from the darkness. Whatever that means, the point that is troublesome for right now and that we discussed is, what does it mean that God created, and then he saw that the light and the dark need to be separated? So Rashi basically says what we just said. And that's, you need to understand the Rashi. But that's basically what Rashi says. Rashi says, here we also need the Agadata to tell us what this pasuk means. As we mentioned, Rashi always learns the pasuk kipashuto. What's pashut pshat in the pasuk? Rashi usually stays away from medrashim that go into drash, into remez, certainly into sod. Rashi stays away. Rashi sticks to the pshuta shel mikvah, and he says it in many places, ani basi for parish pshuta shel mikvah. But there are times where Rashi says we need the agadata because otherwise I don't know how to explain the pasuk. So here Rashi says, when the pasuk says that God saw that the light is good and he separated the darkness from the light, what does that mean? Why did he just immediately create the light separate from the darkness? Why did he create light and darkness together? And then he saw the light is good, so he separated it. So Rashi says, here we also need to come to the Agadata. This answer doesn't help us much. The Agadata says that the Ribono Shel Olam created the light, and then, quote unquote, he realized that there are going to be Rishoyim in the world. And he realized that it is really not right for the Rishoyim to be able to enjoy this beautiful light, which we've never seen. It's not right that the Rishoyim should be able to enjoy such a beautiful light. And God took that original beautiful light and he hid it, and tzaddikim will be able to enjoy that light in the future. So that's the Agadic interpretation. And again, it leaves us with this idea. It says that God created the beautiful light, and then he decided that because there'll be Rishoyim in the world, the Rishoyim shouldn't see such a beautiful light. So we're going to take that beautiful light out of the world, pack it away, put it somewhere for the tzaddikim lost lovely. So why did God initially create this beautiful light in the world? Just create the light that you want the world to use, tzaddikim and rishoyim, and create this beautiful light, and right away put it away, lost lovely. Why create it? and then say, oops, Rishoyim, oh, we'll pack this one away. So it doesn't help us that much. So we talked about this whole idea generally about God's creating, and it seems like he's changing his mind, but he's not changing his mind. We talked about that in terms of Bechira and what God put into the world. We talked about Rabbi Akiva and others who were able to get to the Midas Hadin. Remember, the pasuk says Beraishis Bor Elokim in the beginning. However, you're going to translate Beraishis according to Rashi or the Ramban. In the beginning, or at the beginning, when God was creating the heavens and the earth, and then later it says B'yayim B'roa Hashem Elokim Ela Tol Shmai V'Sa'aretz B'yom B'roa Hashem Elokim. Then it says the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei. So originally at creation it only says Elokim Midas Hadin, and then later it says Yud Kei Vav Kei Elokim, which means Chesed and Rachamim and Din. We learned the Rashi. Rashi says originally God created the world. He wanted it to exist only on Din, and then he saw the world couldn't exist on Din, so he put some Rachamim into it, and we had the same question. What does it mean that God initially intended the world to be on Din, and then he realized it can't exist that way, and he had to put some Rachamim in it? He knew from the very beginning. It didn't just come to him, oh, you know what? I forgot to put some Rachamim into it. That's not the way it works. So we talked about a Pachad Yitzhak and a Rafutna. A lot of these things God creates to put the potential in the world, although he's going to remove it from the world and put it somewhere else. He creates a world that has certain potential in it so that man can come to that and realize that potential. Going back to the Ramchal Das Tavunos, the Ramchal's strong sheet about Ein Chodesh Tachas HaShemesh, the pasuk in Koheles, nothing new will be created under the sun. Therefore, everything was created in the 6 days of creation, whether they exist today or they're here in potential to be created in reality at a later time. Ein Chodesh Tachas HaShemesh. So the Ribbono Shalom created a lot of things that he put into the world and then may have taken out of the world and put away for a future time, but he put it into the world for a very short period of time so that potentially this world can have such a thing. Okay, at any rate, that's the first pshat in Rashi. And then Rashi says, Lofi Pshutai, the Pasha pshat in the pasuk would be Ra'u Kitov Veinolo Lachoshach Shilmishtamshim Bavuvia. Originally darkness, originally darkness and light were mixed together, and the Ribbono Shalom saw that that wasn't good, so therefore he separated the light from the darkness. Okay, we already discussed the kasha on these pshat. The Ramban, which I believe was scanned and sent to you, the Ramban here is going to explain what these words mean, not only on the first day of creation, but for all days of creation. So first, the Ramban quotes Rashi on page 32 of the Ramban. He quotes Rashi. And then after he quotes Rashi, he quotes the Ibn Ezra on what the word Vayar means. Vayar Elokim es ha'or ki tov. And then God saw that the light was good. And the Ramban is going to address this exact question we have. According to Rashi and the Ibn Ezra, it sounds like God created the light. God said, let there be light, and there was light. And now God saw that the light was good. Oh, the light's good. You know what? We're going to separate it from the darkness. It sounds like there was a change of mind here. That's exactly what the Ramban is going to now discuss. In order to answer that question, the Ramban is now going to give us a working definition for the word Vayar. And God saw. God saw that the light was good. According to Rashi and Ramban, it sounds like he created the light, and then he saw the light was good. Ramban's going to give a completely different definition to the word Vayar, and therefore the whole question goes away. Let's take a look at the Ramban. As you can see on page 32, first the Ramban quotes Rashi. Rashi writes, and then further down, Rav Avraham Ibn Ezra explains, and then towards the bottom of the page it says Ramban expresses his opinion concerning Rashi and Ibn Ezra's interpretations. The Ramban's troubled by Rashi and the Ibn Ezra for the reason we just discussed. What happened here? God changed his mind. Ramban says, "Ve'ein divrei shneim nechonim," but the words of both of them, meaning Rashi and the Ibn Ezra, are not sound. Okay. She'im kain yera'eh ke'inyan hamlacha ve'etzah chadasha, because if I accept Rashi and the Ibn Ezra, it would appear as if there was a change of heart and a new thought on the part of God in this matter. It sounds like God changed his mind. He created the light. Oops, this light is really, really nice. We're going to separate this from the darkness. Moving on to page 33. For according to them, according to Rashi and Ibn Ezra, after God said, "Let there be light," and there was light, he saw that it was good, and therefore separated between it and the darkness. It's like a human being who does not know the nature of a thing until it comes into being, and he sees the result before him. This pasuk, God forbid, the Ramban says, if you read it according to Rashi and the Ibn Ezra, it sounds like we're dealing with a human being. A human being created something, he invented something, and he says, "Ooh, you know what? I didn't even realize that this thing can be used not only as a screwdriver. Wow, it's a can opener too. Wow, unbelievable. And now we're going to separate the purposes. It's going to be a screwdriver, or maybe it's going to be a can opener." It sounds like we're dealing with a human being, chas v'shalom, who doesn't know what the final result of what he's doing is. And then when he sees the final product, he says, "Oh, this is going to be good for this." God said, "Let there be light." And then he saw how beautiful this light is. And he said, "You know, it's not good to leave it this way. We're going to separate the light from the darkness." So Ramban is troubled by the question that we were troubled by. It sounds like God didn't know the end result of that which he was creating at the beginning. And when he finally saw the result, he said, "Oh, we're going to change some things here." Ramban now presents his own opinion. Beraishis. Now remember how the Ramban learned Beraishis Bara Elokim. Rashi learned Beraishis Bara Elokim in the beginning, when God was in the act of creation, and according to Rashi, the Torah is not going in a chronological order because there were things created before heaven and earth. For example, water. The Torah says, or Baruch Shalom says, in the beginning, the heaven and earth, and God's spirit was hovering over the water. Where did the water come from? Nobody. Who created the water? So obviously Rashi says things were created before. And now the pasuk reads, in the beginning, when God was involved in the act of creation, in that setting, we'll begin now telling you, God said, "Let there be light." But certainly things were created before. If you remember, Nachmanides disagreed with this. And Nachmanides says this is an exact, precise order of creation. In the beginning, when God created heaven and earth. What's heaven and earth? The Yuli. In the beginning, God created the Yuli particle from which all of the heavens will come. And God created the Yuli particle from which our universe will come, what we call Oretz. And from that Yuli particle, which is Tohu, then came the Bohu, and that from there came the air and the earth and the water and the fire, as we learned Nachmanides. So Nachmanides is going to remind us now of what he told us. There's an order to creation, and in that order of creation, you're now going to know what Vayar means. It doesn't mean God saw and realized something and had to change his mind. Rather, the method used in the account of creation is Ki hotzos hadvorim el hapoal yikori amira. That God's bringing things from their potential state. What's the potential state? The Yuli. There's only one thing, according to Nachmanides, that was created, something from nothing, and that was God created the Yuli particle, heaven, Yuli particle, our universe, and that's it. That's the only two things that created something from nothing. And now out of the Yuli particle earth, there's going to come the light. And out of the Yuli particle earth, there's going to come the sun and the moon. Out of the Yuli particle earth, there's going to come crocodiles. Out of the Yuli particle earth, there's going to come tulips. God says to the Yuli particle, which has all this potential in it, and he takes from this particle that has the fire and the air and the water and the earth, and he takes whatever proportion he needs to take out of the Yuli, he makes a lion. He takes it, he makes light. And that's the creation. God's taking the Yuli potential particle and creating things with it. When in the pasuk it says Vayomer, Vayomer doesn't necessarily mean God said anything. He doesn't have a mouth. It means that God did something, said something, did something, whatever the Ribono Shel Olam does or says, and the Yuli particle brought out something. So, Hotzos Hadvorim El Hapoel Yikari Amira, that God's bringing things from their potential state into their actual state is called saying. Therefore, Vayomer Elokim Yihi Or, in our pasuk it says, and God said, let there be light. Or in the second day, Yehi Rakia, God said, let there be a firmament. Or on the third day, Vayomer Tachia Oretz, God said, let the earth sprout vegetation. The word Amira in all 6 days of creation, wherever you see Vayomer Elokim, it means God is instructing, whatever that means. The Yuli potential particle, take from the earth the water, the air, etc. And from this, I am now creating, not from the potential, I'm now creating a light. I'm creating a firmament. I'm creating this. That's what Vayomer means. Vayomer means the potential in the Yuli will now turn into a tulip. The potential in the Yuli will now turn into light. That's what Vayomer means. That's what Vayomer means. Now, what does Re'iyah mean? Vayar God sees. V'kiyumam yikare Re'iyah. And the establishment of the permanent existence of those things is called seeing that it is good. We're going to pause here for a minute. What the Ramban's saying is, Vayar Elokim es ha'or ki tov. God decided that the or, because it's good, will remain a permanent feature in creation. I want this to exist. Vayar Elokim es ha'or ki tov does not mean like the Rashi and the Ibn Ezra. Oh, the light's good. I see that the light's good. Or, you know what? I recognize that the light's good. So let's separate it out from the darkness. That's not what Vayar means. Vayar flows from Vayomer. Vayomer Elokim Yihi Or Vayi Or. In verse 3, God wills that from the Yuli potential shall come the physical reality of light. Pasuk Gimel. Now, will this light, now that it's been put into reality in the world, shall it continue to exist, or are we going to erase it? Is it something we're going to move past? Vayar Elokim es ha'or ki tov. God wills this light to continue to exist. Remember, we learned in the Ramchal that there's no default setting in the world. Because a person is born and his heart's beating doesn't mean that the next second his heart has to beat. And because he saw yesterday doesn't mean he sighted today. And that's why we make the Beraishis Hashach every day. Thank you, God, for letting me see. You have given sight, you have given sight to the blind. What do you mean to the blind? I went to sleep last night, I was sighted. I wake up, why wouldn't I be sighted? Because there's no default setting. There's no presumption or assumption of anything. Every second is a chesed min hashamayim. God is constantly giving new existence to the world. It's only with the will of God that the world came into existence, and it's only with the will of God that every millisecond it continues to exist. Therefore, Vayomer Elokim Yehi Or, God instructed the Hiyuli potential to bring out light. Vayar Elokim Es Or Ki Tov, Ki Yumam Yikra Re'iyah, back to the Ramban. The establishment of the permanent of those existence of those things is called seeing that is good. And now the Ramban brings down different psukim in Isani the Koheles. He brings different psukim to prove that vayar in certain contexts does not mean that someone said, that someone saw something, or someone recognized something. It means that, let's look at the first example. Similar to the idea in the verse, and I saw in Koheles, written by Shlomo Melech. For Isiani to Koheles doesn't mean Koheles saw something. It means that Koheles decided. He decided something. There's a lot of Koheles where Shlomo Melech is talking about wealth. He's talking about what the important things in life are. And Ra'isiani, through my life experiences, I have decided, I conclude. And Vayar Elokim Es Or Ki Tov means that God concluded that this shall remain in existence. He brings other examples. I'm skipping a few lines. In the middle of the line, it's probably about 10 lines from the bottom, it says, V'ha'inyan lahoros ki amidasim b'cheftzim. The whole point of the word vayar, which appears in every day of the 6 days of creation, God had, there's a vayomer. God instructed the Hiyuli to bring out from potential into reality a certain thing. Vayar Elokim, and God saw. What does that mean? God says, this shall exist. What does it mean it shall exist? I will it to exist. And the moment I cease to will it to exist, it will expire. That means that the whole Bria, every second, depends on God's will to continue to exist. And this is what the Ramban now explains. The idea in this word vayar is to indicate that the continued existence of all things is by God's desire. And that if his desire would depart from them for an instant, they would cease to exist. This is what we're learning in the Ramchal. The Ramchal, we say so many times, Ramchal didn't make these things up. There were certain, obviously, giluyim, certain things that were revealed to him through Kabbalistic sources that he brought to the world. Most of it is based on the Arizal and interpreting the Arizal, but he had tremendous giluyim. But we learned about this in the Ramchal. Ramchal is centuries after the Ramban. The word vayar in the pasuk means, and God decided that this shall remain in existence. To teach you, the Ramban says, lahoros, that just the same way creation was brought about through God's will, the continued existence of creation every second depends upon God's will. And if God's will would stop or would depart for an instant, they would cease to exist. If you take a look at footnote 74 at the bottom of the page, this is why it is insufficient for an object to be brought into existence by God, indicated by the words God said, Vayomer. That's not enough. That just means it's brought into existence. But how will it continue to exist? God must also endow it with permanence, as indicated by the words God saw, in order for it to continue to exist. So Vayomer means God's will, instruction to bring something into existence from the Yuli. Vayar Elokim, it doesn't mean what Rashi or the Ibn Ezra said, at least according to the Ramban, that God recognized, God realized, God saw that it's good, and therefore he had to do something about it. Vayar Elokim means that God concluded that this shall remain in existence at his will, of course. And Chas v'sholom, if the will ends, the thing ceases to exist. Key Ramban to understanding the 6 days of creation. Vayomer is the instruction to the Hiyuli to take something out of potential and bring it into reality, but that's just an act of creation. How does it continue to exist? It continues to exist not on a default setting. Because God created something, it exists forever. There's nothing like that. God created something through the Vayomer, and God put his will into it to continue to exist through the Vayar. And this teaches us that things continue to exist only at God's will and his desire. Chas v'sholom, when the desire ends, the thing ceases to exist. And that's why you have this combination of Vayomer and Vayar. Lineta will continue next week, finish off this Ramban. All Yidni Yeshua Shav Yeshuas, all Yidni Refuah Shav Refuas, all Yidni Nachama Shav Nachamas, all Yidni Brach Shav, all the brachas, the Shefatay from Rabbeinu Shalom, Refuah Shalema, Moshe Zelig Ben Rezel, Refuah Shalema, David Ben Margalit, Refuah Shalema, Yosef Chaim Ben Shoshana Menucha, Refuah Shalema, Liva Malka Bas Chaya Braina, L'chol Cholei HaKorona, L'cholei Amcha Yisrael, Sok Shachol Yisrael, Force Neresh, Force Agum, Ashtabak Allah, is my Karib Lamar Amen. Everybody, please take care of yourselves. You're keeping up with the news. We know what's going on. It's different countries of the world, England, South Africa, Denmark, other countries now. Countries are shut off. Israel, other countries do not allow any flights in from these countries. These countries have found a new mutation to the COVID, which they say is even more contagious than COVID-1. The Rosh Hashanah should protect us, watch over us, and watching over us means that we're going to use our Seichel Yosher to take care of ourselves, to make cheshbonos of what we need to do, what we have to do, how to do it, when to do it, the safest way to do it, so that we'll be healthy and safe and secure. To be Makabel Mashiach Tzidkenu B'Ratz Hashem Mamish today. See the Beis HaMikdash, build the Beis HaMikdash, bring Karbonis, bring the Machzas HaShekel. Everybody have a wonderful day. Tomorrow, Yetz Hashem, we start at 9:30 with the Yeshaya Shir. And then we go to Das Tvunos at 10:15. Everybody have a wonderful day. Sei gesund.